Imagine living on an island where fewer than 40 people share the same roads, the same church, and almost the same memories. There is no airport here, no hospital, no highway connecting this place to the outside world. When you need to leave Pitcairn, you cannot simply catch a plane. You first have to travel by longboat through the waves of Bounty Bay, reach a ship waiting offshore, and then spend days crossing the Pacific before reaching another inhabited country. The nearest major population centers are thousands of kilometers away, and that distance changes everything. A simple medical emergency that would be routine almost anywhere else can become a race against the ocean. A broken bone, a serious infection, or a sudden illness may require an evacuation that depends entirely on weather, ships, and calm seas. Yet somehow, fewer than 40 people have continued to call this tiny volcanic island home. They grow food in their gardens, they fish from the surrounding ocean, they repair their own homes, raise children, attend the same church, and preserve traditions that stretch back more than 2 centuries. But Pitcairn is not simply one of the world's most isolated inhabited islands. It is the final home of a community born from one of the most famous mutinies in maritime history. So how did a handful of fugitives disappear into the Pacific and build a society that survived for more than 200 years? And perhaps the bigger question is this: can a community this small survive the future? If you look at Pitcairn on a map, it almost seems as if someone forgot to finish drawing the world around it. The island sits deep in the South Pacific, roughly halfway between South America and New Zealand. Auckland, one of the nearest major cities, is more than 5,300 kilometers away. Even the nearest inhabited island, Mangareva in French Polynesia, is around 688 kilometers away. And then there is Pitcairn itself. The island is only about 4.5 square kilometers in area, roughly 3.5 kilometers long, and less than 2 kilometers wide. But its small size does not make it easy to cross. Pitcairn is the exposed remains of a volcanic formation, rising steeply from the Pacific, with rugged hills and cliffs reaching about 346 meters above sea level. There is no natural harbor here, and unlike many tropical islands, Pitcairn is not surrounded by a protective coral reef. The coastline drops into the ocean through rocky cliffs, leaving Bounty Bay as the only practical landing point. Even today, visitors and supplies must arrive by boat before climbing from the jetty toward Adamstown. But perhaps the most surprising thing about Pitcairn is that this harsh landscape is actually capable of supporting life remarkably well. The island has a warm, humid tropical climate and receives abundant rainfall throughout the year. Its volcanic soil can support gardens, while the surrounding Pacific provides fish. Yet Pitcairn is only one piece of a much larger world. The territory consists of 4 islands: Pitcairn, Henderson, Oeno, and Ducie. Henderson alone accounts for around 86% of the group's land area, but nobody lives there permanently. Henderson is almost the opposite of Pitcairn. It is an elevated coral island, largely untouched by permanent human settlement, with endemic birds and plants found nowhere else on Earth. UNESCO recognizes it as one of the world's rare examples of a near-pristine raised coral atoll. So this tiny corner of the Pacific contains 2 completely different worlds. One island where fewer than 40 people are fighting to preserve a community, and another where nature has been left almost entirely to itself. And between them lies hundreds of kilometers of empty ocean. That ocean is what makes Pitcairn beautiful, but it is also what makes life here so difficult. Long before the Bounty ever appeared on the horizon, Pitcairn was already part of another world. Around the 11th century, Polynesian navigators crossed hundreds of kilometers of open ocean and settled not only Pitcairn, but also neighboring Henderson and the larger island of Mangareva. They did not see these islands as isolated dots. They were connected by a network of ocean routes, carrying people, tools, food, and raw materials between distant communities. Archaeologists have found evidence that volcanic stone from Pitcairn was used to make high-quality adzes, while materials from other islands reached Pitcairn in return. For centuries, this tiny island was part of a much larger Polynesian world, but by around the 15th century, that network began to collapse. Trade between the islands weakened, resources became harder to obtain, and Mangareva itself entered a period of environmental and social crisis. Eventually, Pitcairn was cut off from the larger population centers that had helped sustain it. The island became silent. For centuries, no permanent community remained. Then, in 1767, a British ship finally spotted Pitcairn. But even then, the island was difficult to reach. Captain Philip Carteret could see the land, but could not safely land because of the powerful surf. More importantly, his position for the island's longitude was wrong by roughly 330 kilometers. That mistake would change history. In 1787, HMS Bounty left England under Lieutenant William Bligh. Its mission was not to explore the Pacific or search for a hidden island. The ship was carrying breadfruit plants from Tahiti to the West Indies. But after spending about 5 months in Tahiti, relationships between Bligh and part of his crew deteriorated badly. Then, on April 28, 1789, everything exploded. Led by Fletcher Christian, members of the crew seized control of the Bounty. Bligh and 18 loyal men were forced into a small open boat, and the mutineers sailed away. But escaping the Royal Navy was only the beginning. Christian knew they needed somewhere the British would never find them. After searching across the Pacific, the group rediscovered Pitcairn on January 15, 1790, hundreds of kilometers from where earlier charts had placed it. That navigational error suddenly became their greatest advantage. The island was uninhabited. It had fresh water, fertile land, and enough resources to survive. So they chose it. 9 mutineers, accompanied by Polynesian men, women, and a child, settled on Pitcairn. Then they did something irreversible. They stripped the Bounty of everything they could use. And on January 23, 1790, they set the ship on fire in what is now known as Bounty Bay. The smoke disappeared into the Pacific. The ship was gone, and with it went their last easy route back to civilization. But they had made one mistake. They believed that escaping the British was the same thing as escaping danger. It wasn't. Within only a few years, conflict, alcohol, disease, and violence would tear the tiny settlement apart. The paradise they had chosen as a hiding place was about to become one of the most violent chapters in Pitcairn's history. So what does everyday life look like when your entire community is smaller than a typical apartment building? On Pitcairn, the answer is surprisingly ordinary. People wake up, go to work, tend their gardens, repair their homes, fish in the surrounding waters, and meet their neighbors in Adamstown. But here, almost everyone has to do more than one job. There simply are not enough people for specialized careers. Someone might work on the island's roads in the morning, tend fruit trees in the afternoon, and go fishing before sunset. Others make traditional handicrafts, sell honey, maintain boats, or work in public services. The island's gardens provide bananas, breadfruit, coconuts, beans, and other tropical crops, while the surrounding ocean remains an important source of food. And because there are so few people, community life is deeply personal. A birthday, the arrival of a ship, or a public celebration can bring almost everyone together for a shared meal in Adamstown. There is also something unusual about the island's language. Alongside English, many Pitcairners speak Pitcairn. a unique Creole that developed from the English spoken by the Bounty mutineers and the Tahitian language of the Polynesian women who arrived with them. In other words, their history is not only written in books. It is spoken in everyday conversation. But raising the next generation is much harder. Pitcairn has only one school, Pulau School, providing primary education for local children. Education is free and compulsory. But once students become older, many must continue their education in New Zealand or through distance learning. And this is where modern technology has begun to change island life. For years, internet access was slow and extremely limited. But in February 2024, Starlink became available, giving this tiny community a much faster connection to the outside world. Suddenly, people living thousands of kilometers from major cities could communicate, work, learn, and interact with the global economy in ways that previous generations could never imagine. Yet technology cannot solve everything. The population continues to shrink. Wikipedia records just 35 permanent residents in 2023, making Pitcairn the world's smallest territory by permanent population. And that raises a fascinating question. Can modern technology keep a community alive when there are simply too few people left? If you find the way these people live fascinating, comment 1 below. Because the next part reveals the side of Pitcairn that makes this beautiful island far more complicated than it first appears. More than 2 centuries ago, a group of fugitives came to this island because they wanted to disappear. They burned the Bounty in the waters of Bounty Bay, destroying the ship that had brought them here. There would be no easy way back. For the generations that followed, Pitcairn became something very different. It was no longer a hiding place. It became home. Children were born here. Families grew. A new language developed. Traditions were passed from parents to children, and the names of the original settlers survived for generations. At one point, the population reached around 250 people. Today, only 35 permanent residents remain. And that number changes the meaning of everything we have seen. The empty roads are not simply quiet roads. The tiny school is not simply a small school. The few houses scattered across Adamstown are not just homes. They are pieces of a community that has become smaller with every generation. The ocean that once protected Pitcairn from the outside world is now part of the challenge. Young people leave for education. Jobs are limited. Medical care is difficult to access. And every generation must decide whether to return to this tiny island in the middle of the Pacific or build a life somewhere else. But perhaps Pitcairn's story has never really been about numbers. It is about people who refuse to let an impossible place become empty. Tonight, the lights of Adamstown may still shine beneath one of the darkest skies on Earth. The longboats may still rest in Bounty Bay. And somewhere on those steep green hills, the descendants of the Bounty mutineers are still calling this place home. Maybe Pitcairn will survive. Maybe, one day, it will become an abandoned chapter of history. No one can know for certain, but for now, fewer than 40 people remain here, keeping alive a story that began with a mutiny, survived isolation, and somehow became a homeland. And perhaps, that is what makes Pitcairn so extraordinary. It is not simply one of the most isolated inhabited islands on Earth. It is a reminder that sometimes, the hardest place to reach can become the hardest place to leave.